Hey, hello, and welcome to the June 14 JupyterLab weekly meeting. Uh, let's see, today we have 16 people on the call, and you had to be there. We all just introduced ourselves. Well, not all 16 of us, but many. So that's incentive for you to come if you're seeing this at some point in the future. And let's see, if you would like to talk about something, please add your name to the agenda and we will get started right away. So Jason W., you are up first.
Hey, good day, everyone. There is an open issue, JupyterLab issue 14585. It's in the notes, and I'll drop a link into the chat as well. Came from a colleague of mine who noticed that we have two different icons in JupyterLab, one for terminal and one for a code console, but the code console icon looks very much like the terminal icon used in Mac OS and some popular Linux desktop environments. So it's a bit confusing. And so there's a proposal to change the icons. And as you might expect, this is something that has gone back and forth a few times. People have opinions. I'd encourage folks who are interested in visual designs, because this is probably going to be a quite noticeable change, to please take a look at some of the concepts that have been put in there and weigh in on it. We should probably come to a consensus on this fairly soon if we want to take action on this. I don't know if anybody has any questions or comments here live on the call. All right. If not, I welcome your comments. Is there a strong case for change, asks Mike. I personally feel like the terminal icon of greater than underscore is pretty common. And so it might help new users to be more comfortable. The idea of a code console is, as far as I can tell, particular to JupyterLab. And so I like the idea of using a different color scheme to differentiate the two. Even if we use a very similar icon, using a different color might be good. But the idea of like putting square brackets with a colon afterwards, it might be specific. Yeah, and Tony points out color only is insufficient for accessibility. That is a valid concern as well. Also for things like printed documentation material, if you use a black and white printer, you don't want to use color as the only differentiator.
I would argue that the code console's not unique to Jupyter. It's just a REPL. It's a good REPL. It has visual stuff in it, but it's just a REPL. And so maybe there is prior art in something that's analogous, but not exactly a code console. If we look to see what kind of representations of REPLs we've got.
Yeah.
I mean,
there is a comment. Oh, I'm sorry. There is a comment from a colleague of mine, the same one who suggested I open this, that points out that Jupyter Qt Console uses an icon that looks more like the prompt. And so perhaps we could use a simplified version of the Qt Console icon for it.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, we've got a comment in the chat about just calling it a REPL. I'm down with that, but I would be because I said the word, so don't take it too seriously. Yeah, there's a question. Is there a consistent icon system that could reflect stuff made of cells? I mean, you know, you see like a little table icon used to represent spreadsheets and stuff, but no, I'm not sure.
Yeah, when I was working on the cell toolbar last year, this was a common concern that having an icon that represents a cell is surprisingly difficult, because what does a cell look like other than a really skinny horizontal rectangle? And so cells plural could look like a series of horizontal rectangles, but that's arguably too simple and doesn't really convey the notion of cells. So it's tricky. But a code console is not necessarily something that is purely related to cells. It's yeah, it's a REPL element. I mean, iconography is hard. This is why we haven't made progress on this yet.
Okay, well, we could talk about this a long time, I'm sure, so let's not
Okay.
Um,
Well, please, let's keep the conversation going in 14.585. So if we can come to a consensus on something that we believe is better, then we'll try to move forward on it. Thanks for your time.
cool. Thanks for bringing it up.
There was a question also in the chat
Mhm.
from Mr. Grout about moving Tobias's item up in the agenda. So make sure that that's.
Oh, I didn't see that. Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
Of course.
so that's okay. I'll cut and paste it
Beautiful. Thank you.
to be immediately after. Go ahead, Toby.
Yeah, please.
Awesome. Yeah, appreciate it. All right. Yeah, thank you. So I basically just wanted to use also this meeting to reach out to Mike. I already texted you, but I just want to make sure that we are currently working on Python LSP support, and we would like to upstream all that work. So far, I haven't seen any attempt to support notebook document messages, LSP messages in any package. And we find that the Python LSP server package is, I think, a very good starting point to get this going. So I've already opened a pull request. I'm currently working on it. But since I haven't heard from you or I forgot the other maintainer of the package, I just wanted to reach out again, asking whether we can have like a quick call, like 10 to 15 minutes would be, I think, more than enough to get things going. Either way, I'm already working in parallel and happy just to also contribute more to the package and probably even become a maintainer if that is possible. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, sure. Sorry, I haven't had time to look into your pull request, Ilya. I will be working on LSP stuff these coming weeks. I will mostly porting the LSP extension to JupyterLab 4, but I will make sure to find some time to look at the pull request, and we can also sync outside of this meeting to look how to make this progress further. I don't think that Carlos would be currently have much of an opinion about how the integration should proceed. I guess that what we should do is just try it out with an editor which supports that, and maybe see whether we can find good suite of test cases or other ways to ensure that what you are proposing in the pull request would work, and then we can patch that as once there is a proof of concept. So yeah, we are, I believe, still interested in having that in.
Perfect. Yeah, appreciate. And any form of communication that is most efficient to you is welcome. So you can choose any form. If you like more async, that's fine to me. I've made experience with having a synchronous conversation gets a lot of things out of the way very quickly. So, but yeah, I'll leave it up to you. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So Fred, I think, is not here. Is that correct? Yeah, okay. I'll read what he wrote. So he asks a question which maybe we can answer for him. Should we create a branch for 4.0.x and switch the main branch to be 4.1 so that we can start merging adding PRs? And he volunteers to do it. Yeah, so if you can react with a thumbs up or thumbs down, that would be helpful. Just to get the temperature for it. I think it's not a particularly huge thing, but
should we take a look at how many issues open at 4.x milestone? That's just something I asked myself hearing this question.
sure. So
yeah.
if we look at 4.0.x, there's 94 open issues. So I guess the real question is, should these go into 4.0.x or 4.1, right? Because if they're patches, yeah, okay, Mike, what do you think?
I think those can be once there is a pull requests, then those can be backported. So I think we wouldn't be saying that we are focusing on 4.1 now. We would be saying we are happy to merge some of the pull requests, and we understand that this might make backporting a little bit harder, but we still plan to release more 5.0.x versions. Just to clarify if that wasn't clear.
Okay, and it looks like there's 15 issues that are, sorry, not issues, 15 pull requests that are targeting the 4.1 milestone. And none of those can be merged until we do this, basically. Is that right?
Yeah, as an author of 4 of these pull requests, I'm biased possibly.
No, that's fair.
Yeah.
Okay, so does anyone have like an objection to this plan? Because it seems like Fred is pro doing it, what with volunteering to do it. And it seems like only 2 of us expressed preference otherwise. Do other people have an opinion about this? Okay, got another thumbs up, that's good. Yeah, I think we should just tell Fred to do it if no one's got an objection. Okay, so if somebody has the notes open and can please type the answer there, I would appreciate it, because I'm trying to find the tab myself and I can't do it. I've lost it. I guess I can open it up in a separate menu. Yeah. Okay, so the next thing Fred had was a couple of follow-ups to JupyterLab 4. So congratulations, Andrew, for doing release 4.0.2. The demo has been updated, but apparently it's missing R packages. So I think this is a call for help. And the extension examples repo has been updated to work with Lab 4. So I don't know, does anyone feel like they can maybe look at this JupyterLab demo perhaps? What's this in the chat? Oh, 4.1 release. Yeah. Okay, well, I for now, just it's on the agenda at least so people will see it. And that was it for Fred. So any questions or comments there, or should we pass it on to Andrew? Okay, Andrew.
Thanks. So I wanted to also mention that so yeah, I did a release. Please ask me in the future if you would need to do a release. I can do that now. So yeah, and the point that I wanted to discuss is the point that Darian was bringing up last call, and here is a link to the issue. I will also add it to the HackMD. Here we go. Yeah, so essentially, how should we proceed with the initiative to handle hosting the weekly JupyterLab call? So one question there is how should we provide access to Jupyter Zoom account for hosts? So credentials are stored in 1Password. Based on the discussion with Steve, there is no apparent way to safely provide access to like anyone. Darian, yeah.
So I don't know if you're with the latest update to this Zoom account, but we used to have one blocker that was needing to use the Project Jupyter Gmail account as the multi-factor, and that problem's been resolved. So now we can share the multi-factor and the credentials with people using 1Password. So at least we have that, but we still don't have the way for an arbitrary person, and I don't believe we ever will because it's an account-based system. So but please continue.
I think then taking that into account, it seems like it would make sense to maybe restrict it initially, at least, to JupyterLab council members that volunteered, and then kind of like look at it at person by person basis based on the like applications, you know, from community members or something. Yeah. So this was one point, and the second one was in the same thread I published. Put there a link to a hosting guide draft. Got some feedback already from Jason there. I would welcome more feedback and more comments. And I also wanted to ask, what should we do? What should be done with that guide? And generally with these decisions when we finish them, should they be included into documentation? Should they just remain in the team compass?
I think a markdown file in the team compass that's linked to the root folder or something, or maybe, or if not a markdown file, then a piece that gets generated in the actual, you know, static site or something. But yeah, this belongs in the team compass one way or another in a discoverable way.
Okay. Okay, so thank you on that. Are there any opinions on that previous point about, you know, providing maybe solution would be here to provide access to all JupyterLab council members, or what are the next steps here? Is it something that security group needs to discuss? What do you think here? I'm talking, yeah.
I'm sorry, what would the security group need to discuss?
So next steps about this action point about allowing other people to host calls is there are volunteers already in that thread,
Sure.
right?
Yeah, no, I will add the volunteers in that thread, which I think are you and Mike, right? I'll check again to see if there's others to have access to those credentials.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Well, yeah, thank you. That's it for me. Thank you.
Cool, thanks. Yeah, I was hoping basically leave it open a little bit longer to see how many people say, and then maybe just have a group call with a group of us to see how we want to split it up, right? I didn't push for that this week because I was hoping to sort of entice others to also volunteer, basically. But as people add themselves as volunteers there, I can give them the access to those credentials. And also, once we have a couple more people, maybe let's just have a call together or we could do it in an issue depending on how difficult it is to get a whole group on a call. But yeah, we can pick it up from there. Because I know Mike said his availability increases in Q3, and so that's another few weeks from now. And beyond that, you know, if we split it into 3, that's much better for me, obviously, but more the merrier, right? Cool, great. Thank you very much, Andrew.
Yeah, I think there are already 4 volunteers beside you. So
oh, perfect. I haven't looked at that issue in a little bit, so I missed that. That's great. Awesome.
okay, thank you.
Cool. Okay, so Mike, you're next, and take as long as you wish. I don't want to have the additional discussion conversation, so you really pad it out.
There is another point on the agenda being added as we speak, so maybe I shouldn't take as much time. But yeah, in JupyterLab 4.0, when we migrated to CodeMirror 6, we removed key maps. That means that the key bindings are fixed and there is no way to change them to presets such as Vim, Emacs, etc. And it was brought to our attention that this is a regression. It's not an intentional one. I understand that this happened because in the course of migration, there just wasn't enough time to address all the issues, and this one was missed unintentionally, or maybe intentionally. It's just not clear that there was a conscious decision to remove the key maps. So there are 2 questions. One is because the CodeMirror 6 no longer offers built-in key maps, should we bring them back into the core using a third-party extension, which is from Replit? Not sure if I pronounced it correctly. And then, if yes, should it go into JupyterLab 4.0 because that's fixing a regression? Should it go into 4.1 because it's adding a new feature? And should we add all three of them or just one of them? Vim is the most requested one as of now. So, are there any opinions on this one?
I have an opinion, but I prefer somebody else's before mine.
So just to sort of make sure the context is clear here, because I think my understanding is there's still like a lot of key codes that can be mapped, keyboard shortcuts that can be mapped right now. But this is specifically talking about the code editor.
Yes,
correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Which might be a different conversation whether we should completely abandon the key management by the code editor and instead integrate all the shortcuts into our existing shortcuts editor. That would be require possibly more work, but potentially provide a better user experience because users would be able to modify every single shortcut.
So the fact that it's missing is regression. So I think actually adding it back in the patch or backporting it to a patch is probably more in line with, like, that's a mistake, sort of. I know how it happened, right? But it's effectively speaking, it's an omission. So I would argue it's a patch, but I don't feel strongly about it. Like, if somebody says, give me JupyterLab 4, I would hope they get it, even if it's 4.0.9 or whatever. I would hope that they get this feature that existed when they used to say, give me JupyterLab 3.
I'd like to ask a question about this. Sorry, I don't have solutions. I just have questions, but I just been working a little bit with the code cell editors, and so I haven't tried to use like I haven't in previous versions tried to use like a Vim mode for code cell editors. I'm like, I guess I'm confused. Like, what would happen if you're in edit mode in a code cell editor and you press the escape key?
So Vim mode is not super useful in the notebook by itself, which is why there is a JupyterLab Vim extension to facilitate that. And there are different options. So you can choose what is the behavior that you expect. But even if in the notebook you don't have the Vim mode, you can still use that exclusively in the file editor, which is what some people were using and finding useful. So having like a split notebook behaving like Emacs-like and file editor behaving as a Vim. It was also pointed out that the Vim extension would actually need to include this extension bringing the key map itself as well. And if we had that in core, that would possibly make it easier to port that extension to JupyterLab 4.
Okay. What do you? What is your intuition on where you're going to go with this thing? Right?
So I think I'm going to open a pull request, bringing in code mirror Vim as a dependency, and let's see how it works. If it works well, maybe we can add additional key maps later on. I think that's a good balance between adding external dependencies and trying not to introduce too many features at once.
Okay. Cool. All right. Did you have anything? No, you don't. Okay. Okay. So next is Virgil.
Okay. So I have opened a pull request. I have linked that in the chat. We need to discuss that. Should we add this icon or not, and what other changes can be done to additional? So the I. Okay. One second. Yeah.
Yeah, so for a little more context, this is a follow-on to some of the work that I did, and you picked up the follow-up issue that we filed about this, where there is currently no icon to indicate the behavior of the toggle output scrolling behavior in JupyterLab. And so you have to mouse over it. Your cursor changes to a zoom icon, which was kind of a stopgap thing that we put in. And this proposal adds an icon if there's enough room for it. And I believe we're also going to remove the those cursors as well. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. And there was some open discussion about that with some other folks, but if you want to weigh in on this, this would be good to have as well. I personally like the icon. We discussed it a while back. Gabriella contributed some good assets for it and some feedback, but curious what other folks in the community think about it.
If someone sorry, I want to say that if someone has it compiled and on their screen, you know, feel free to share so everyone on the call could see what we're talking about. But yeah,
Great point. What I wanted to highlight is that I think, I'm not sure, are the screenshots in the top level command up to date? So with the different sizes, or were those just not updated?
Okay. I'll share the link to the message itself.
Okay, so this comment you put in the chat, that's the current experience.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Is this unstuck? Like, do we know where we're going?
so here we're looking, I guess, and what Bridge was, sorry if I'm mangling your username, was writing in the HackMD is that he's looking for more design feedback, and there was a fruitful, there were a lot of comments regarding design there. So I guess from what I'm gathering, more input is maybe seeking here, or what would you say, Bridge? Do you think we have a consensus here? Do you seek for more design feedback? Do you generally seek more feedback? What would you say?
I am okay with the current design and the icon size. If you have some feedback about the size, or like we are removing the background, like hover overlay, that is the gray shade. So we are thinking to remove that. So that is not the problem. But what about one of the comment from I don't Tony first. So I am going to share that. So he says that, one second. Yeah, so he is not he's not liking the icon, so he has suggested some other changes, but I think he he couldn't get the right discussion. But yeah, is this like the good to have, or this will need some improvements? I'm sorry, I am first time here, so and my communication is little weak. Sorry for this.
Oh, no worries. I see. So yeah, there was some discussion, but Mike thinks that this pair is good to go, and we can follow up on the changes in separate pairs and like
Yeah, that
fine
sounds
tune
great.
something. And yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you for bringing it up here, because I think sometimes an issue is resolved much faster when we have a higher bandwidth conversation. So great, awesome. Okay. So if no one else has anything else they want to talk about, we have an additional discussion item. But I will pause for a second to see if anyone else would like to fill up the rest of the clock so we don't have to talk about the additional discussion item.
You want to talk about forums?
Hey, look at that. That sounds like a really interesting subject.
Nick's got his hand up.
Yeah, Nick's got his hand up. I see someone with their hand up.
All right, I raised my hand. I'm gonna lower my hand. I'm gonna raise my hand. I'm gonna lower my hand. I'm gonna lower my hand. Yeah. So I've been working on that mermaid thing. Steve does not care and just merged it on NB-convert. So NB-convert 7.5 speaks mermaid now with basically the same code. So we can start getting some feedback there on whether people use it, which is cool. But in doing that, I also bumped up marked to 5.1. We are still on 4. I don't know what on 4, and so starting to throw some deprecation warnings. They're basically getting rid of a bunch of their GFM opinions, and so in that 4.1 timeline, we need to decide whether we're gonna go with the newer version of Mark. It's not actually part of the public API, so I don't think that would constitute a breaking change for downstream developers. But every time we change Mark or we change MapJacks or whatever, it breaks something that somebody wants their Markdown or their LaTeX to do. But it's got a better modularity story. It's got some performance improvements. It's got some RDOS problems that it solved. So even if we don't get Mermaid in, we should probably consider getting Marked in. But I think we should get Mermaid in. We identified a couple changes there with like changing themes no longer triggers a Markdown re-render, which is probably great, except if your diagram now disappears because it's made of black lines on a black background, which is not great. So gonna have to do something nasty there. And then I think that was the only like, oh, and then some accessibility stuff. Mermaid has some accessibility features. We're currently consuming them by base64 encoding it inside of an image, which has other advantages, but we're losing the accessibility features by not doing an iframe or directly embedding the SVG. We're not going to embed the SVG, just so you know. So yeah, that's just an update on where that has been. It's not ready to go yet, but I have been looking at it. And thanks, Mike, for your feedback.
Okay, thank you. Suppose it's time to move on to the additional discussion section of the agenda. Jason, the floor is yours.
Did you want to keep the recording going for this, or are we good to do this off the record?
You know what? My intuition is it's better to have this conversation with a group of people who are not being recorded. But if anyone disagrees, please give me a thumbs down and I'll keep the recording going. Okay, I'm going to start the recording. Brace yourselves.